Where I've been in my life.
See, now my curiosity is piqued.
So I said it.
Are there images floating around of you in tie-dyes, Gary? Long hair?
The president, they probably discussed
Yeah, I've got it on my list. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Cox, if you please call the roll.
Dr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Edwards? Mr. Huja?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Here.
Mr. Talaparo?
Here. I want to announce, first of all, you may notice our colleague Holly Edwards is not here tonight. She's actually at a conference up in Washington, D.C. and will not be able to join us tonight. But the proceedings are being recorded. I know she's going to watch the whole show. So, I have a quick announcement of note for residents of our Martha Jefferson Historic District wanted me to announce publicly and celebrate the fact that as of the end of February, the Martha Jefferson Historic District has now been listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So congratulations to that neighborhood. Yes, round of applause. I know they put a lot of work in that effort, and I congratulate them for it. Any other announcements or items to be added to other business?
I have a couple items I'd like to add. I'd like to, a number of meetings ago, we had a request from the ASAP, the group that's wants to fund a study of an optimal population, and we funded it conditioned on looking at their scope of work, and that scope of work has been looked at by our Sustainability Committee, and I wanted to report on that. Secondly, and related to sustainability, there's a meeting coming up in May of the ICLEI group that does assessments of carbon use by cities. They're having a meeting for both staff and elected officials, which I would like to attend as the chair of the Sustainability Committee, and I'll give you a lot of details on that in other business.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Any other announcements, other business? Okay, it's time for awards and recognitions. We have 3 proclamations before us tonight. The first has to do with poison prevention, and I don't know if anybody's here from the Blue Ridge Poison Center, but okay, great. We are very pleased. I'll read a part of this proclamation. It says, whereas last year the Blue Ridge Poison Center responded to more than 26,000 human exposures to poisons in its 62-county service region, including 2,428 in the Charlottesville-Albemarle area. And whereas poisoning is the second leading cause of injury, hospitalization, and the second leading cause of injury death in Virginia, whereas the Blue Ridge Poison Center has been instrumental in alerting individuals of all ages to the need for poison prevention and providing individuals with treatment information and advice in a poisoning emergency. Now, therefore, I, Dave Norris, Mayor of Charlottesville, do hereby recognize March 16th to 22nd, 2008 as Poison Prevention Week, and I call this observance to the attention of all our citizens. And I have a proclamation to this effect.
I'd just like the public to know that the Poison Center is an emergency call service. It's manned by nurse specialists 24 hours a day, and it's very important for folks to take special care this time of year and every day. I have here some stickers and some magnets, so the Poison Center phone number can be handy for folks, and they can put that close to the phone. Thank you very much.
Could you tell that phone number? Can you speak that number?
Yes. The toll-free number is 1-800-222-1222. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next proclamation has to do with ovarian cancer awareness, and I don't know if anybody's here to receive that. Okay. Again, in part, the proclamation reads, whereas this year 22,430 Americans will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and 15,310 Americans will die of ovarian cancer. And whereas each cancer patient is empowered by the love and support of family members, caregivers, and friends, and whereas sharing the experience of cancer transcends the diagnostic and treatment process for all. And whereas the arts offer an intensely personal and powerful way of expressing and sharing the experience of cancer, now therefore I, Dave Norris, Mayor of the City of Charlottesville, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the week of April 14th, 2008, as a time to be aware of the power of art in the healing process, to encourage the citizens of Charlottesville to know the facts about ovarian and other forms of cancer, and to engage actively in helping patients and loved ones deal with this experience.
Thank you, Mayor Norris, and all members of our City Council. I'm Dee Edie. I'm the Administrator of the Cancer Center at the University of Virginia. I appreciate your recognition of the University of Virginia's Cancer Center staff as we acknowledge that cancer experience is much more than a medical healing. It encompasses many layers of emotional healing as well. I would also like to invite all of you to the Body Essence Body Image exhibit, which will be held at the Sage Moon Gallery, in case anyone, this Sage Moon Gallery here, at our downtown mall, which explores the physical, emotional, and spiritual dimensions of healing. This event will be held April 10th through May 23rd. There will also be a workshop called The Journey Through Cancer, Healing and Transforming the Whole Person, with a nationally acclaimed speaker, Jeremy Geffen, on Thursday, April the 17th, will also be held at Sage Moon Gallery. Finally, I would like to recognize the wonderful staff and public who have helped us get this together. If they will please stand in the back. Who have helped with the event and with the great cancer patient care. So thank you for this recognition.
Thank you very much.
I would briefly like to add that we are very happy that finally people are beginning to recognize the connection between art and the power of healing. And it's wonderful for UVA, the city, and everyone to be working together with it. So thank you.
Thank you. And finally tonight, American Red Cross Month 2008. Is any representatives here from the Red Cross? Okay, great. Each year during the month of March, we formally recognize the American Red Cross Central Virginia Regional Chapter and its essential humanitarian role in Charlottesville, Virginia. We honor the role of the Red Cross's contribution to making Charlottesville a better place. Every day, Red Cross volunteers and employees carry out the mission by providing essential services to people and their communities with the help of generous donors here in Charlottesville. For more than 90 years, Charlottesville has relied on the expertise of the American Red Cross in disaster relief. Each year, the Central Virginia Regional Chapter in Charlottesville responds to an estimated 150 disasters, including house or apartment fires, hurricanes, and other natural or human-caused disasters. The Red Cross does a tremendous range of, provides a tremendous range of other services to this community. And so therefore, I, Dave Norris, Mayor of Charlottesville, do hereby proclaim March 2008 as American Red Cross Month, especially during this extraordinary time for our country. I encourage all Americans to support this organization's noble humanitarian mission.
I think you said it all. I think that we could not be the kind of quality organization we are without the volunteers and the support of this community and the city of Charlottesville. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. We're now going to open our meeting to matters by the public. We'll be accepting public comment at a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. And we would ask that you state your name and your address when you come forward. The first person that signed up is Colette Hall.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Councilors. Colette Hall, 101 Robertson Lane. Recently, we read that the mayor and perhaps other councilors think that spending more money on the proposed Eastern Connector is probably a waste of funds. Just my paraphrase. If it comes to the decision that the Eastern Connector is not viable, realistic, or too expensive, what is the future of McIntyre Road Extended, the city's part of the Meadow Creek Parkway? Past councils decided that if the Eastern Connector was not built, McIntyre Road Extended should not be built. I ask and invite all the councilors seated before me to walk the proposed route of the McIntyre Park, of the Meadow Creek Parkway, McIntyre Road Extended, as it traverses East McIntyre Park. If you have not, I am eager to guide you through that park to walk the proposed route of the road. You will be shocked to see the tons and tons of earth that will be moved by leveling, filling, or manipulating the land in some way. A ridge will be removed, the natural topography altered, hundreds of trees will be cut in the green city Charlottesville prides itself on maintaining. Animals which have found a habitat like deer, fox, hawk will exist there no longer. Shanks Branch Creek, which flows into Meadow Creek, which flows into the Ravenna River, will be crossed by traffic. All this construction and increase in impervious surface will cause increased pollution and stormwater in this almost pristine area, an area of unbelievable beauty and quiet in the heart of our city. The Meadow Creek Parkway benefits vehicular traffic from other counties. It is detrimental to Charlottesville. Come and walk with me, and you will cry at what the city will lose as its heritage and future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hall. The next speaker is Megan Jetton. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Good evening. My name is Megan Jetton.
Jetton, sorry.
Yes, it's okay. I live at 120 Dogwood Heights in Scottsville, and as the treasurer and publicist of Monticello High School Student Peace Alliance Club, I'm here today to propose that Charlottesville adopt a resolution supporting the establishment of the U.S. Department of Peace in the President's Cabinet. This department would deal with issues both domestic and international, encompassing everything from teaching children peacemaking skills at a young age to preventing gang violence and rehabilitating prisoners to securing the option of negotiation with foreign nations in times of crisis. As stated in the resolution, the Department of Peace would aim to establish peace as an organizing principle of American society, expand human rights here and abroad, and strengthen non-military means of peacemaking. And as you can see on this beautiful poster right here, the Department of Peace would also confront and reduce gang violence, reduce prison re-entry, create a U.S. Peace Academy, and reduce the costs associated with war. And thank you for your time, and if you choose to adopt this resolution, thanks for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. The next speaker is Aaron Wise Ackenbaum.
Hi, my name's Erin Wise Ackenbaum. Did a good job with that, too.
Thank you.
I have a residence in the town, 1031 St. Clair, as well as in Fluvanna. And I also teach at Monticello High School. We would like you tonight to support the resolution that's in front of you. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson both wanted a Department of Peace when they formulated our government. And I think it's about time we did that. Dennis Kucinich in 2001 was a presidential candidate to support the bill in front of the House of Representatives, H.R. 808. We have 68 congressmen and women today that have already endorsed it. There are 32 councils across the United States that have already have resolutions that support this, and we'd like Charlottesville to become the 33rd. One of the reasons why people have said, well, we don't really want this, is number one, because of bureaucracy. And I agree that this is another level of bureaucracy, but, you know, it's ruling our lives right now. It's ruling our children's lives, and I really think the face of our world in America has changed. And I think we have, being a superpower, we have changed the face of all people. I think it's about time. A couple things. Another thing is the cost. Aiden is from Charlottesville High School, and the cost to Charlottesville has been $59.8 million. Charlottesville has already spent on the war. And that's I got that information from the nationalpriorities.org. In other estimates, $30 billion a year is estimated in personal violence in the United States, $4.1 billion at the cost to the United States. Now, the other piece is the real cost is our lives, our children, and that really is our cost. There's been 4,000 United States soldiers that have died. There's been 6,000 wounded, not to mention what's going to happen with post-traumatic stress. I mean, that is going to be huge. I'm almost up, and then the other piece is there's been 82 to 89,000 people in Iraq that have died. And, you know, we mourn over our 4,000, but, you know, we're talking about a bigger group, a much bigger group. So I just ask you tonight to really consider this bill, and the bill would only be 2%, as it's proposed now, 2% of the military. So it's not a cost to Charlottesville, but it's really great to support this, and then maybe our congressmen and Senate and House of Representatives would. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have another thing. If you in the audience support peace and the U.S. Department of Peace, if you could stand right now, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a peace-loving people.
Thank you. The other thing that I want to mention is I have over 100 signatures from Charlottesville High School, 2 policemen from Charlottesville High School, as well as from Monticello High School that support this department.
Great. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Allison, and
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My handwriting is a little bit unlegible at times.
That's okay.
Slauson.
Slauson. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I can see that.
Yes.
And can you give us your address, please?
Oh, yes. It's 2035 Tremont Road, Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay.
I'm here with my friend Katie, and we're also here for peace and whatnot, and we actually have a song that we would really like to play for you guys.
We'd love it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I wrote this, and Katie also did the music and everything. Okay. So, I don't have a strap, so it might be a little bit difficult, but either way. Okay. Do you want a chair? That would be probably a good idea. Yes. Is it all right to move this?
Sure.
Thanks. All right. Katie, you good? Can you hear me now? Anybody? Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't you understand that we're not all that we can be? If that was the case, then why would we require a standing army to deal with our foes? It just goes to show we're not quite evolving. It goes to prove that we are no axis to which the world's revolving. Can you understand? Goodnight to the gunfire. It's my revolutionary lullaby. Political masks are the fashion. It's fun to hide the lie. So lay me down to sleep. Lay me down to weep. Read my lips it's not like this in the storybooks I read. We keep growing, we keep fighting. Will we do this till everyone is dead? So hush your mouth, hear them whisper sounds as we're falling over. All we can hear them say is the children asking how much longer till we're over. Can't you understand? Can you understand? Can you understand? So kiss me goodnight to those gunfire. It's my revolutionary lullaby. Political masks are the fashion, a smile to hide the lies. So lay me down to sleep. Lay me down to sleep. We're not faking this anymore. Can you see that? We're all prisoners of war. Kissing goodnight to the gunfire. It's my revolutionary lullaby. Political mask, not fashion, the style to hide the lies. So lay me down to sleep. Lay me down to weep.
Thank you.
Under 75 decibels, which is great. So, that's a hard act to follow, but we're going to try with Katie Stewart. Oh, that was you. All right. So you took. Okay. So Mary Kelly is next.
Top of the evening to y'all. My name is Mary Kelly, and I'm from 760 Lexington Avenue. And while I come to you lighthearted in appearance, I couldn't be more serious in my request for you all to support the resolution that was proposed to support House Bill 808, which calls for the U.S. Department of Peace and Nonviolence. This resolution requests that Congressman Virgil Goode co-sponsor HB 08 currently before the House of Representatives, and requests Senators Webb and Warner to introduce companion legislation in the U.S. Senate. Why pass this resolution now? I was asked by a friend who's a government teacher if I knew how many skirmishes, military conflicts we'd been involved in from our history from the year 1700 to the present. And I counted, the World Wars, the Revolutionary War, the wars in Korea, Afghanistan. I thought, okay, Iraq, Vietnam. And I thought, maybe around a dozen. Well, we've been involved in over 300 military conflicts, and that can be verified with the U.S. Naval Library. And there's no more time critical to start beginning the talk about peace than right now. My appearance speaks to Ireland. 300 years of violence and conflict in Ireland didn't work. The only chance they had was talking about peace. So I really urge you all to give this serious consideration and to please support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Our next speaker is Christine Solom.
Christine Solom, 1836 Polo Grounds Road, Charlottesville. I'm here actually for an announcement. You have in front of you a bill which we got passed in the General Assembly this year, which we're quite happy about. It affects the city market. It will allow private homes to sell baked goods, candies, jams and jellies without state inspection. And all you have to do is put on there, not for resale, produced without state inspection. And believe me, it was hard fought. We didn't get pickles on there. pickles will kill you, you know. There's been one case of botulism in pickles in the whole United States, and we don't know the circumstances of that, homemade pickles. But anyway, that's for someone else to fight next year, but we're real happy about this. And the sponsor was Senator Cree Deeds, and Toscano carried it in the House. And I want to thank particularly Mayor Brown from last year and the council from last year, because they put up with a lot of grief about the city market. And so we've got the baked goods and the candies and the jams and jellies taken care of anyway. So
Great.
I just wanted to let everybody know.
Well, thank you and congratulations. And our last signed-up speaker is Ridge Schuyler.
I don't have a song, but I do have pictures.
Oh, that's close. That's a good thing, Ridge.
Okay, right.
I've heard you sing.
Those are all hard acts to follow. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm not just wearing green, I'm going to be talking green, and not the budgetary kind. My name is Ridge Schuyler, and I live at 112 Robinson Woods. I'm back again to talk about the Nature Conservancy's work protecting the Rivanna watershed. Last time I addressed one of the two main threats to the health of the Rivanna watershed, excessive sedimentation. Today I want to address the other threat, excessive water withdrawals. Our rivers provide us with the good life. We hike trails beside them, we catch fish from them, we canoe and kayak on them, we swing off ropes into them. But we now recognize that we are harming them. When we leave too little water in our rivers, we are affecting the health of those rivers on which our lives depend. We used to think that we could remove as much water as we needed from our rivers so long as we left some small amount in the channel to keep it from running dry. However, scientific research has shown that the natural rising and falling of rivers is critical to the habitat and life cycle dynamics of river wildlife. When we flatline that natural variation by allowing just a steady stream of water out of our reservoirs or by stopping the flows altogether, we upset nature's balance. To determine the flow needs of our local rivers to sustain life, the Conservancy commissioned a study led by scientists from the University of Virginia and Virginia Tech. Armed with this knowledge, we are working to find ways to balance the needs of people for adequate drinking water supplies and the needs of wildlife for variable flows in our rivers and streams to keep them healthy, to keep them beautiful, to keep them useful for recreation. As an example of the challenge we face, last year, during drought restrictions, the river was so low my 4-year-old son and I could walk across the Rivanna River at Riverview Park. Here's another example. I have shared with each of you a picture that shows the amount of water we release into the Mormons River when we are storing water there for our own use. You will see in the center of the picture what looks like spray from a fire hose. Chief, let me assure you that I have nothing against fire hoses, but in this instance it may not be enough to supply water for a major river. The Mormons is a state scenic river upstream of Charlottesville and is one of the two primary rivers that provides a majority of the flow that creates the South Fork Rivanna. It also harbors wildlife on the brink of extinction. As Charlottesville's excellent comprehensive plan so eloquently states, there is a reason God put streams, wetlands, plants, and animals on earth here with us. When the balance of these things is disturbed, our human way of life is disturbed for the same fate. I know we can do better. We can find a way to restore natural flows to our rivers and streams and have enough water for us to drink. We have to. These are our streams. There is no one else to protect them. I'll be back again next time to discuss some strategies we have for addressing these threats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schuyler. That's everyone that signed up to speak. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to share some thoughts with us? Yes.
Good afternoon, City Council. I'm sure you all are pretty aware of me already. Representing Impact with Travis Harris. And actually, I want to first of all say thank you. We appreciate your presence for coming to our Nehemiah Action last Monday. We don't take that for granted. We truly do appreciate it. We also like to thank you for committing the $500,000 towards 30% AMI and below revenue. And I'm not coming to ask for anything, but just to share my gratitude and my appreciation that you all have recognized the need of affordable housing, specifically for the working poor, the way in which we have classified them, for the working poor, for those who make 0 to 30% AMI. And I just want to give share, as representing Impact, my appreciation, my gratitude, and also just looking for in the future that possibly in the future the amount could be increased and a dedicated revenue stream so year after year we wouldn't have the same problem. But again, thank you, and I hope everything continues to go well.
Thank you. Yes, sir. This is general public comment. Did you sign up for the public hearing on the budget or the tax rate? Okay, we'll have that public hearing a little bit later on the agenda, so we'll get to you there. Any other general comments? All right, well, we're going to close the matters by the public, and now we open it up to council responses to matters by the public. Would anybody like to offer any thoughts?
I'd be happy to. I really enjoyed the music. I hope you realize that years from now, when you look back on your career, you'll realize that the first televised appearance that you had as singer-songwriters was at Charlottesville City Council, and it's archived in our video stream, so it will be there for a long time. I really appreciate everyone coming forward on the issue of the Department of Peace. I heard Dennis Kucinich speak when he was here, and he's very persuasive on that. I think it's a good idea. However, I don't think it's necessarily the city's role to kind of advise the federal government of what it should, how it should be structured. So I'm not sure if I support the resolution, but I support the concept. And I guess what I would say instead is I would urge my fellow councilors to contact people individually if we agree with this proposal, and urge people in the audience and on TV to contact their legislators directly. But I'm not sure if I feel like it's something I feel like the city should open up. I think we have that discussion on a number of issues. We had an impeachment, people coming here wanting us to endorse impeaching the president, and I think we kind of had the same kind of feeling at that time. And that's the only comments I had tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I also appreciate the idea of Department of Peace, and I think I disagree with our Councilman David Brown. I think it is if the federal government can advise us, we can advise them also. We are also citizens of the whole community of the country, and I think it would be good to pass a resolution to support this kind of effort on our country's part.
Any comments, Mr. Talafaro?
I have no problem supporting the resolution. In fact, I'm a combat veteran, and I've seen some terrible things many years ago, and I always support any efforts that might lead to the elimination of war and bring us toward having peace around the world. So thank you for your efforts.
And I agree with the comments of Mr. Hooger and Mr. Talafaro, and I will ask staff to put this on our agenda for our next meeting so we can actually take a vote on it. And thank you all for coming tonight. We are going to move on now to appointments.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to move the following appointments to appoint Rebecca Schoenthal to the Board of Architecture Review as the owner of a business or commercial property in a design control district, and to appoint Kevin Lynch to be the citizen member of the Route 250 Interchange Steering Committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? If not, please indicate your vote. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Brown. We have on our consent agenda tonight a number of items. Item A is the minutes of February 19th and March 3rd. Item B is an appropriation, $4,148, a grant for bulletproof vests, the second of two readings. Item C is an appropriation, $3,606.54, reimbursement to Sheriff's Department, second of two readings. Item D is an appropriation, $14,888, a contribution from Albemarle County for therapeutic recreation, first of two readings. Item E is an appropriation, $54,466.66, Fire Department grant, first of two readings. Item F is a resolution authorizing transfer of $10,000 from thermostat rebate program to water systems rebate program, first of one reading. And item G is an ordinance abandonment of utility easements on property off 15th Street Northwest, second of two readings. Are there any items that councilors would like to remove from the agenda or any discussion on the agenda?
I move the agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, please indicate your vote. Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to start the substantive portion of our meeting tonight with a presentation on the school board budget. And this is the largest item in our annual budget is our support for the schools. This city council and this city has long had a strong interest in supporting the work of our school system, and we're very happy to have with us tonight our superintendent and chairman of our school board and a member of the school staff, and I would welcome, Ms. Atkins to lead us off. We have a PowerPoint presentation.
Do you have some introductory comments, or do you want to remove?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and members of the City Council and our audience. Thank you for inviting us tonight to present our school budget. One of the things that we can be assured of in Charlottesville City is that we have an enormous amount of support. I'm hoping this is great. We have an enormous amount of support in our city and on our City Council for the operation of our school system. Last year, around this time, we came before you and presented a budget, and at this time, this 2007-2008 school year, we are benefiting from the generosity of the City Council in fully funding our budget. Last year, we have realized a number of successes in our school system that include a full accreditation of all of our schools. It also includes 7 of our 9 schools making AYP, which is a federal mandate. The budget that you funded last year also has provided salary increases for all of our teachers and staff, giving us the opportunity to remain competitive with our surrounding school divisions. Very importantly, it enabled us to put into place a program called Bridges, which is a school day intervention program at all of our K-8 schools. We're starting to realize an enormous amount of success with those intervention programs. We also expanded all of our after-school programs in our K-8 schools, allowing all of our K-8 schools to offer an extended day program which will allow our students 2 additional hours of instruction each day. We also put in place a 3-year-old preschool program that has realized an enormous amount of success. We added an additional English as a second language teacher to support the continual growth in our ESL population. We also implemented at Beaufort Middle School an after-school athletic program. It gives our students an opportunity to have very specific sports that they can participate in, activities that they can participate in after school. It keeps them engaged and also helps to further our wellness program. We are also in the process of implementing a student information system in our school division. And we are also, we have implemented a teacher or mentor program which helps our novice teachers and our teachers who could benefit from professional development. So as you can see, your generosity has had a great impact on the operation of our schools, and for that we're very grateful. This year we come to you with a budget that has been developed by soliciting input from our teachers, our administrators, our community members. We have held multiple town meetings to get input from our parents and our teachers, our school board. It is a well-thought-out budget that has a foundation in our strategic plan. I have before you the 5 goals of our strategic plan, all of the activities and recommendations that we make in our school division are based in the strategic plan, and each time we evaluate the success of our programs, we refer back to the strategic plan. It involves increasing the academic achievement for all students, programs that will support the whole child, that will increase family, school, and community connections. It will allow us to also recruit, retain, and support diverse teacher population, staff population, and make sure that we have effective leadership in all of our schools and in our administrative positions. It also allows us to provide all students and staff with an environment that's conducive to learning. After the careful thought with our constituents, we developed a budget with 3 major areas. First, staffing, salaries, and compensation. Then support to employees and employee benefits. Third is the instructional support. And a last area, which could be considered a 4th area, is a general area. If we take a look at those 3 major areas that our budget is grouped in, with staffing, salaries, and compensation, as you can see, one of the main things that we want to consider is making sure that we maintain competitive with the surrounding school divisions. We look at each year the number of teachers that leave our school system, and we realize that one of the things that our teachers look at when making a decision as to whether or not to apply to Charlottesville City Schools is the salary scale. So maintaining a competitive position is very important to attracting new teachers, but it's also important in keeping teachers in our school system. Also, we would like to implement a K-12 staffing formula in which we look at how our pupil-teacher ratio is implemented at the various school levels, at the K-4 level, then at the 5-6 level, into middle school and into high school. Our budget also has in it increased summer school pay rates for our teachers. We realize that surrounding school divisions for a number of years have paid teachers summer school salaries based on their years of experience and their annual salary. We'd like to have a scale that takes into consideration the annual salary of our teachers so that we can maintain and keep in our school division our brightest teachers for summer school. It also asks for an increase in the professional development facilitator teacher mentor program and the presence in our schools. Currently, the mentor teachers serve an enormously important role in our school system in making sure that we provide adequate support for teachers, whether they are first-year teachers, zero experience, or teachers who have been in our school system for a number of years and need additional support in order to continue to have an environment conducive to learning. Increase nurse pay scale by 10%, and this particular item in our budget is a response to our human resources study that was conducted about 3 years ago. And over the past 2 years, we have been putting in place various components of that study, and this is one of the final components of the study that we do need to put into place. Still under staffing, salaries, and compensation, enhanced services to students. We realize that the business that we're in, one of the most important things that we do is to provide for our students high-quality instruction. And to aid us in doing that, we would like to add 1.5 English as a second language teachers, Our ESL population continues to expand, it continues to grow, and the number of languages that our students have when they come into our schools continue to increase. So we find it necessary to increase the teacher complement in that area. Of course, reading is a very important area in our schools, and getting all students on grade level in reading is extremely important. So adding 2 reading specialists at Beaufort and at Charlottesville High School, 1 English teacher at Charlottesville High School. English is taught all 4 years of a student's high school career. Oftentimes we find that in our other course areas we have very small pupil-teacher ratios. However, in English, because it is taken every year of the 4 years that a student is in high school, oftentimes those classes get to be relatively large. So adding another English teacher at the high school would benefit us a great deal. 2 teachers at Charlottesville High School in the 9th grade. Research has shown that when our students transition from middle school to high school, oftentimes that's when they start dropping out. So small pupil-teacher ratios in the 9th grade, more individualized attention will help us to impact a student's decision as to whether they will or will not stay in school. We'd like to also lengthen the social workers and the psychologists contract to 220 days. Over the past few years, we've realized that during the summer, we still have work that our social workers and our psychologists must complete. So we put them on a per-day compensation schedule in order to complete that work. It would be in our social workers and psychologists' best interest and in the quality of the services that we offer to extend their contract to 220 days in order to cover that work during the summer instead of paying them a per diem rate. Lengthen also the nurses' contract to 200 days. Currently, our nurses come report to school when our students report and leave when our students leave. Because of some of the mandates that we have in processing our kindergarten students, some of the kindergarten screening and new student screening that takes place in our schools, it would be beneficial to our schools to have the nurses' contracts extended to 200 days to cover some of those responsibilities. Also increase of, at Venable, the nurse position to full-time. That position is currently a .8 position, and that would bring the nurse position at Venable up to full-time status, as is all of the other elementary school nurses. Add an additional CHS nurse. That would be a nurse for the high school. Currently at the high school there is 1 nurse to service approximately 1,300 students. 1 additional nurse would help to respond to the needs of the students at the high school, but would also allow us some flexibility in providing a RN at our elementary or middle schools when a nurse is absent. Currently, when a nurse does not report to school, if we cannot find a substitute, 1 nurse would end up covering 2 schools. With the additional nurse at the high school, it would allow us some flexibility to rotate this nurse in our school division as we see the need with absences. At a half-time volunteer coordinator position, last year council and other members of our community were very interested in the amount of volunteers, the number of volunteers that we had in our schools and the number of volunteer hours that they gave to our schools. And once we calculated that information, we realized that we had over about 5,000 hours of volunteer time or more in a very short period of time. The coordination of the number of volunteers that it takes to give that amount of time is an enormous task. And it is a task that could be done very efficiently from a division level. So we propose to add a half-time volunteer coordinator position. Also to increase the Talent Development Scholars Program staffing. Currently, we have our Scholars Program, our Talent Development Program go hand in hand with our Quest program. At many of our schools, our Quest teacher not only serves students who are identified as our gifted students, but they also serve our talent development students. By adding teachers at the elementary school level and at Walker and Beaufort, we would be able to dedicate a position to talent development, allowing our Quest teacher to spend the entire school day working with our identified gifted students. I think this would be a win-win for our talent development and our Quest students. In our employee support and benefits area, we know that student wellness is an important area. We've developed a policy that responds to the need for students to engage in physical activity in our schools and in the community. Not only do we need our students to be healthy, but we also need our teachers and our employees to be healthy. What we'd like to do is offer our employees a wellness program that would help to supplement the cost of their their membership at one of the gyms in the area. This is a request that we've received time and time again from our teachers, and we're very pleased that we've been able to work out a program with our area gyms. In instructional support, one other area that we don't have listed there as an employee benefit is tuition reimbursement, to increase the amount that we offer our teachers when they have to go back to school for relicensure purposes or for additional training. Oftentimes it's a pretty significant cost in the coursework, usually about somewhere between $1,000 to $1,700 per course. With the tuition reimbursement, we would help to offset some of that cost for our employees, for our teachers. Instructional support, implement a world languages program that would be a Spanish program at our elementary schools. We would use 2 teachers to have that implemented and look to increase and to advance that program in the future. Increase field trip support for our students at all grade levels. Increase funding for consumable materials, especially in the math and science areas. In some of our areas, the materials can be reused each year. However, with experiments and hands-on math activities, we need to replenish those 2 areas of the curricula on a regular basis. Increase funding to our fine arts and our fine and performing arts program. Minds in Motion has been a very successful program in some of our elementary schools. This would allow us to expand that program to all schools. And of course, the support of our Charlottesville High School chorus is very important to our school division and our community. And then the operating budget for our fine arts program. Establish English as a second language intake center, and this would help our parents to process and to complete paperwork and connect with community services as they come to our schools to register students who have English as a second language. Provide increased professional development for instructional and students services, staff. That's a very important area. That it's important that our teachers and our staff stay abreast of best practices in the delivery of instruction. This professional development and an increase in that services would allow us to do that. The final area of support that we have identified in our budget, the establishment of a furniture replacement fund. As we've gone through our school division, we realize that we must have a comprehensive approach to furniture replacement. Currently, we look at each school and we'll replace pieces of furniture as the individual school recognizes that they need that. A much more efficient method would be to evaluate the condition of our furniture that's already in the building, create a listing of the condition of the furniture, and then have a replacement on a regular cycle. Plan a comprehensive alternative education program. We're currently in discussion with the surrounding school division to offer a regional program with other school divisions, a program that would respond to not only the needs of students once they have been involved in a major infraction in our school system, but also would respond to the needs of students prior to an infraction. I know that City Council is very interested in responding to violence in our community and having programs in place that would provide counseling, mentoring, and support for students to not only react to an incident, but to help avoid an incident. So those are the major areas that we have in our budget, the priorities that our board has approved as moving forward in our budget, and Ed will go over cost of that. Why don't I switch with you? Take this.
Thank you. Now it's working. On the of note on this first slide, really are the benefits and contractual obligations and other. The benefits number going up just over 2%. That's probably the smallest increase in benefits that we've seen in at least the last 5, maybe pushing 10 years. The primary driver behind this not going up as much as it normally does, it's really a product of both the governor's proposed budget as well as both houses of the General Assembly, which was to reduce the rate that we apply to salaries for retirement, for the Virginia retirement system. The Virginia retirement system recommended one rate. Both governor and both houses reduced that rate below that, which was recommended by the actuaries under the retirement system plan. So that's a relatively small increase. The increase in contractual obligations and general operating, on that one, primarily those are our major contracts under the maintenance and transportation. The increases there are primarily driven by increases in fuel costs. Under revenues, primary funding source, as is usual, is the city of Charlottesville, just over $39 million, an increase of 3.76%. A fairly good state budget considering the economic times, an increase of 6.77%. Federal government is always one of the smaller funding sources for schools. The monies that we get under the federal government are also largely restricted as to use. We get very little general fund money that the community has control over. Most of the money that comes from the federal government is tied to very specific sources, just over 2%. And the 2.91% decrease in fees and others is primarily due to the rate that the school system can charge for managing grants. That rate is dictated to us by the federal government using a very defined formula. That formula caused that rate to go down, and that means the money that we generate from administering those grants also declines. Under the total budget, the general fund is that fund. It's the largest fund. It's the fund that primarily operates those programs and positions that the city of Charlottesville has control over. They're very general in nature, so that's called the general fund. Increase of $2,289,000, or just over 4%. Special revenue fund, these are grants or other sources of revenue that are restricted as to use. We account for them separately. Increase of 3.79%, so that the total budget for the school system is increasing just over 4%. A couple of pie charts showing revenues and expenditures broken down by the major categories. Over the last 5 years, neither of these has changed much. The city typically approximately 57, ranges anywhere from 50 to 60% funding from the city. The next big bulk from the state, very little from federal, and then fees. Between personnel services and employee benefits, always about 3/4 of the entire operating budget. It's a service entity. It's what you would expect. About 75% is people and the benefits paid to them. The school system, like all districts, also reports under state reporting categories. These are the categories that you see defined here. Again, the percentages that you see allocated here has not changed much over the last 5 or 10 years. The large pie allocated to instruction ranges anywhere from 70 to 75% over that time period. Probably if we could back up just a second. The piece of the pie there that's changed the most would really be under technology. The way the school system has done business, like everyone else, has switched from lots of manual processes and labor to a lot more technology. So that piece of the pie is probably the one that's grown the most over the last 10 years.
As you can see, our you can keep it on.
Okay.
As you,
Go ahead, I'll hold it.
okay. As you can see, one of the, it is, okay, good. Personal academic success for all of our students is extremely important. The budget that we're presenting to you tonight takes that into consideration. It's a budget that will allow our school division to continue to move forward. The academic success that we have seen over the past year, we would like to continue to increase that, increase the achievement of students who are below grade level at twice the rate that we're increasing the achievement of students who are at and above grade level. That way we can realize a close in the achievement gap in a relatively short period of time without the sacrifice of any of our students. It would be moving all of our students forward. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Hello there. Decked out in your green and everything.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Any questions on the part of councilors?
I have one question. What's the total number of personnel increases in total this year? Do you remember right offhand?
In the general fund, it's 12.1, and net of the special revenue fund, which is grant sources, we go down to about 11, just over 11.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
There was no mention of dropout rate in high schools. I was wondering if that has changed in last year.
Well, we will be calculating that. We won't calculate it again until the end of this year. So after our graduation around June 30th into July, we will calculate the dropout rate. We have very recently put in place an evening school program, and the specific purpose of that program is to respond to students who are not on track for graduation this year. That's one of the components of our alternative school program, which will be a comprehensive program.
Dr. Brown?
I don't have any questions.
I had a couple questions for you.
Certainly.
First of all, I was very pleased to hear you talk about violence prevention and integrating that more so into the schools, and I think that's a very important direction for the school system. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about opportunities for collaboration with Albemarle County. You mentioned alternative education as one area. I wonder if there's others that you're pursuing or that are reflected in the budget that didn't come up tonight, or
The superintendent in Albemarle, Pam Moran, and I meet often. Currently, we have collaboration with our instructional programs. Our instructional teams meet on a regular basis to talk about the development of curricula, the development of programs, the use of programs, how they're using programs, how we use it. So there's a real exchange of information, ideas, and materials in that setting. Dr. Moran and I have also talked about our professional development and how we could have one professional development program that would service both of the school divisions. sense, best practices is something that both school divisions engage in, and best practices would be the same in both school divisions. So that's another opportunity for collaboration.
Great. And I understand that the city schools is looking to do the same kind of resource utilization study that Albemarle County did, looking at efficiencies in the school system. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
We did. The school board chair and I met with a representative from Virginia Commonwealth University last week, Dr. Bill Bosher, who's a well-known former state superintendent, and to talk with him about conducting the resource management review in Charlottesville. We understand that there have been some questions in the community about our staffing and whether or not we are under or overstaffed. For us to respond to that would, certainly we would have one view on that. We know that we need a unbiased third party to come in and take a look at how we are staffed, give us information, and make recommendations. So certainly we are moving forward with that.
Great. I appreciate and applaud your moving in that direction. I think that's a good step. One other issue that's come up has to do with raising the base salary for full-time employees, the lowest paid employees in the school system. And there's been some talk about trying to raise that quote-unquote living wage or base wage up to match the city's base wage for our lowest paid employees. And can you talk about where you are in that thought process?
Actually, we have included that in our budget.
Oh, it is in the budget. Okay.
It is in our budget, and we neglected to say that when our school board approved the budget, it was approved asking us to go back and take another look at the budget and make some adjustments so that we could give that living wage increase. We will raise all salaries to $11.74. That will be the base of all of our salaries.
That's great. Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. Any other? Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing. We continue to be very impressed with the work of you and your team, and I look forward to good things to come.
Great. Thank you.
Our next item is a public hearing on the annual tax levy, and I'm going to have our city manager, Mr. O'Connell, introduce this.
Every year at this time, the City Council considers two things relate to the budget. One is the budget itself, which we'll talk about in just a minute, and the second one is the tax levy for real estate within the city. I'm going to go through a published notice that we're required to publish by state law and try to explain some pieces of it, but I want to explain two things quickly. One is the assessments, which are to reflect market value for properties within the city, are determined by the city assessor's office under professional assessment methods, and that's one part of determining people's property taxes that varies by individual property, what type of property it is, and what the market is for those various properties within the city. And the City Council does not have anything to do with that. The second part of determining what people finally pay with their property taxes is the tax rate, and that's what's in front of the City Council tonight. If you add all the different pieces to the assessment increases, new construction, commercial, and residential, and figure out what the total assessed value is, and that increase at 6.94%. If you take the city's increase because of that and define what the state calls the effective tax rate increase, that would be 6.74%. That's what was in the notice. I should say those are averages. For example, the average residential assessment increase is 4%. Some properties above, some below. We actually went through and looked at residential properties. A third of the residential properties in the city are either at zero or no increase or less than 0%. So when you get into the averages, there's some above, some below, but a significant number of residential properties in the city this year are at 0%. So if the tax rate would stay the same, people's taxes would be, real estate taxes would be the same for the coming year, which is what the budget considers, versus the year that we're in. The actual budget, if you add all the general fund budget, including the capital budget, increases 4.7%. And so that's what's in front of the council in terms of looking at setting a real estate rate for next year. The current rate is 95 cents per hundred. The recommendation that's in the city manager's proposed budget is to continue the budget at that rate. And so the revenue estimates that are in the budget, the proposals from an expenditure standpoint are based on that 95 cents per hundred rate. This is scheduled for public hearing. It will come up at the early meeting in April for council to consider formally adopting a tax rate.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell. Any factual questions on that? If not, we'll open the public hearing, and the first person to sign up is Carl Shaw.
I'm Carl Shaw. I live in 207 Surrey. Start off by talking about, there's already precedent for what I'm going to talk about. Several years ago, the legislature enacted legislation allowing Fairfax City to differentiate their tax rate on land and buildings. That is, to have a higher tax rate on land than on buildings. I don't know what they've done with it. For several years, they didn't do anything with it. Of course, initially, the thing was vetoed by the governor. Sorry. The original proposal was vetoed by the governor, and the next governor passed it and enacted it. So what I'm saying is there is a precedent for what I'm about to talk about. We should do all we can, I hope we'll do all we can, to reduce the price of land. There's lots in the city that sell for $100,000. There's no way an average working person can afford that. People have left the city because they can't afford to live here. The superintendent here, the county superintendent of schools spoke to us publicly a couple months ago, and she said some beginning teachers who are starting at $30,000 salary, sounds like a lot of money to me. They can't afford to live just on their school salary, and they take part-time jobs. Land prices are declining, not house prices. We're constantly being told about a home price decline. Homes are not declining in cost. Lowe's are not selling 2x4s for 50 cents. Carpenters are not working for minimum wage. Land prices are declining, and that's only to the good. Lower price attracts more customers. Land should not have a purchase price. The creator soon would not approve his or her earth being used as a casino for land and resource speculators, which has made rampant inequality and poverty. We never heard of all this fuss in 2000 when land prices were rising 10% per year. You should do all you can to reduce land prices. Currently, there are land parcels, I already said that, $100,000. Page 2. God did not create land to be bought and sold. Land and resources are common property. Local governments have within their authority the power to reduce land prices. You could reduce land prices down to zero. Native Americans have no such concept of buying and selling Virginia. Buying and selling Virginia was Peter Jefferson's and others' idea. They drove off the Native Americans, took the land into private ownership, divided it into parcels, registered it with local government agency, and sold land to new immigrants from Europe for a price. This is a violation of moral ethics. Numerous intentional communities in the 19th and 20th centuries were founded on the idea that land should not have a selling price. High land prices discourage the economic system. The knowledge of how to reduce land values has been around since 1750, when Francois Cuisenaire wrote the first book in economics, which advocated what we call the socialization, the taxation of land values. Land speculator class has seen to it that the population has always had to buy God's land. When we're born into this earth, nobody tells us we're going to have to buy the land. There was a 1978 survey, USDA survey of land ownership in America, showed that 4% of us own about 95% of the privately owned land. As I say, you can contact your legislators and ask them to pass a two-rate tax law which will permit the city to join Fairfax City. Of course, there's many cities in Pennsylvania which have been doing this for many years.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you for letting me speak before you.
Absolutely. Ms. Colette Hall.
Colette Hall, 101 Robertson Lane. The tax levy is too high, or else why are there hefty budget surpluses? And by the way, my assessment did go up 5%. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. That's all the people that signed up to speak in this particular public hearing. Is there anybody else? Yes.
My name is Carolyn Valve, and I live in Little High Street. I just wondered how your proposal went for tax relief for people to come down. Did you ever go through with that to see how many people applied for tax relief? I mean, this year or last year? How did it go? I mean...
We can answer that after the public hearing. I'll be happy.
Oh, okay. I wondered about that. I was going to ask Ms. Atkins, because she came from a larger school district, and when she got here, I remember her saying in the Daily Progress saying that she was surprised at how many people were in the central office, a lot more than when she had up there in her, where she came from. And I just don't think we streamline our budgets very well. 95 cents a hundred is a lot of money. And all of you own a home, and you don't mind paying 95 cents a hundred? This is why I don't understand why you don't fight for us a little bit more, you know? Do you like paying 95 cents a hundred? I mean, really. I mean, people in Charlottesville don't make $50,000 a year. They're working 2 and 3 jobs, and everything's gone up. So we would just like for you to care a little bit more about us, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moore?
Just as a point...
State your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry. Jim Moore, 1213 Hazel Street. Just as, I guess it's sort of a point of order, I think you should, in keeping with the spirit of state law, you should make it clear that since the appraisal went up more than 1% this year, the legal tax rate actually was automatically reduced. So at this point, the tax rate is much, much lower than 95 cents. And you're not actually voting to keep the tax rate the same. You're voting to raise the tax rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anybody else like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. Just as a point of clarification, Mr. Brown, do you want to address the comment by Mr. Moore about the effective tax rate versus?
Well, tax rates, of course, are set for a calendar year, not a budget year, or a fiscal year, which is July 1st of one year to June 30th of the next. Just to be clear, I don't think we have a tax rate right now. The tax rate was set for last year, which was the calendar year, and it is yet to be set for this year. In terms of making it clear about the impact of the proposed rate, which is 95 cents, we are required to publish in the newspaper, and this is the title, which you have in your notebook, Notice of Proposed Real Property Tax Increase. So that has been published in the newspaper.
So we have met the letter and spirit
yes,
of the law. Okay. Any comments, thoughts from councilors on the comments that were raised?
I wonder if you could inform this lady's question. I thought we had information on...
I know Mr. Ray is here, and I don't know if, I don't see Mr. Richards here, but I know we did have...
We're checking right now, but
okay,
they don't know off the top.
I know we had roughly a little over $400,000 in tax grants, tax relief that went out through the one initiative that provides tax assistance to the moderate and low-income homeowners. I know there were several hundred homeowners that qualified, participated in that program this year. However, I also know that utilization of the program was very low. Only 16% of households that qualified for this tax relief initiative actually participated. So we've got to redouble our efforts to engage more citizens and provide the tax relief that citizens are due.
Maybe they want a tax rate of just across the board instead of having to come down here.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are embarrassed to do that.
Thank you. Any other comments? So as Mr. O'Connell said, tonight we're not adopting the tax rate. This is a chance to hear from the citizens. We'll be adopting the tax rate along with the rest of the budget in April. The next item on the agenda is another public hearing on the city manager's proposed FY 2009 budget. Mr. O'Connell.
I'm going to make my comments about the budget fairly brief. We've had a series of meetings already, a public presentation in the council chambers. We had a special community forum on Saturday that was an interactive forum with City Council on the proposed budget that I thought was a very effective way to have a discussion. But let me give a couple highlights about the budget if people do not know this. All this information that I'm going to talk about in terms of the budget and the details and all the financial information that's behind it are on our website. But a couple highlights. The total operating budget is a little over $127 million. That's a 4.21% increase. We're also proposing a $24.4 million capital improvements program. We spent a lot of time talking in past sessions about how the proposed capital and operating budgets reflect City Council's priorities and the Council's vision. There are 8 of those vision statements that have to do with economic sustainability, lifelong learning, education, quality affordable housing, Charlottesville arts and culture, a green city, America's healthiest city, a connected community, and smart citizen-focused government. The reason I mention those is this budget is very much a strategic document looking to the future and the dollars and cents that are behind those initiatives. As you heard, there's strong support for education, which consistently has been a top priority of this City Council. We're fully funding the request from the school board. There's affordable housing initiatives and continuation of tax relief and a tax grant program. We have a proposal to add to and create some new youth recreation programs that come as a result of reallocating some savings due to consolidation of our pools from 2 to 1 indoor pool. There are a number of improvements to the transit system, including the addition of some new routes and route improvements. There's funding in the budget for major capital projects, including the replacement of Smith Pool, and there are a number of other initiatives. And as well, it continues the basic services within city government. From a staffing standpoint, the city's operating budget has no increase. We proposed adding 1 new employee that would be funded to inspect new buildings in the community. It would be funded by the construction inspection fees that we're proposing to council to be increased. We have a need for increased inspections, and if you drive around this community, even though the economy is slowing down, building has not slowed down. That's offset by the elimination of the executive position in the city manager's office, so that nets out to no new employees. So that's simply put what the budget proposal is. I should add that to this point, the budget is a proposal from the city manager and staff to City Council. Council's had a series of work sessions. They have another work session tomorrow night to go through the budget in some detail. And then from there, the council begins to craft a budget that would come to City Council, to the next council meeting, that is City Council's proposal. And then there's another public hearing to consider that, and then 2 meetings for City Council to consider final adoption of the budget. It has to be legally adopted by April 15th. So that's kind of where we are in the budget schedule. A real quick overview of what the budget proposals are and then where we're going over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell. Any factual questions on this for Mr. O'Connell? If not, we're going to open the public hearing. We have 7 members of the public that have signed up to speak, and the first of them is Jackie Bryant.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Jackie Bryant. I'm the Executive Director of Children, Youth, and Family Services here in Charlottesville. And we are running a program called the Real Dads Program. REAL stands for Responsible, Empowered, Available, and Loving Dads. And we are running that program due to a generous funding from the city that started July 1st. So we are in our first year of the program, and I'm here tonight to ask you to please restore funding for that program at the requested level in next year's budget. At this current time, the agency budget review team recommended a decrease in the funding from our current year, and we don't feel like we've had enough time when we wrote that application to really prove the benefits of this program. And we're here tonight. I'm here tonight with Eddie Harris, who is our fatherhood specialist in the Real Dads program, and Bobby Nicholson, who is one of our participants in the program, to talk with you about the value of this program. Just quickly as an overview, we are currently providing outreach, parent consultations, and home visiting through the Real Dads program, and to date we have served 256 dads. This is just since July 1st. The program is having a huge impact. We're looking at outcomes such as dads' involvement with their children, self-sufficiency of the family, and the father's contributions to the family's financial stability, and the father's support of the family emotionally and financially. Those are the outcomes we will be reporting on when we finish our first year. I'm going to turn it over to Eddie and let him tell you a little bit about what he does.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Harris. What I've been doing so far in the Real Dads program, I'm at the part of the process right now where I'm really building the relationships with the guys that I work with on a regular basis. On a regular basis, I work with 5 guys in the community, 4 guys that's incarcerated at the local jail, and 1 guy that's in the Department of Corrections. I'm building relationships with them, but I'm also doing a lot of parenting consults, a lot of outreach in neighborhoods like West Haven, Blue Ridge Commons. And right now I'm just building relationships. I need to establish some trust with the guys that I'm working with. And at the same time, I'm building relationships in the communities that I'm working in, that people can, you know, they feel like they can reach out to me when they got some problems going on. I'm also attempting to build relationships with other service providers, other agencies that I can link up with or get my guys linked up with that could serve them in whatever needs they may have. So I'm in the part of the process right now where I feel like I'm building trust all the way across the board, you know. And I feel like it's an important program, and I feel like it is making a difference. Thank you.
My name is Bob Nicholson, and I'm participating in Real Dad. And to this day, I'm 44 years old. I've never seen my dad. So, you know, and I seen it through TV, the Cosby shows and everything like that. And the result of that, you know, my son is now incarcerated at a young age, 17 years old, doing 40 years. Because, you know, I thought if I just be there, I was, you know, a dad. But really I wasn't. I was just a body. Today, I have a daughter that I'm setting goals, which I learned through the program. I've been incarcerated. They didn't teach me about, you know, how to be a dad. And, you know, you hear that, you know, home value starts at home, you know, but I didn't have a dad at home. And then I went to penitentiary. They didn't give it to me. And when this program came along, yeah, I mean, my daughter was innocent, and I wanted to be a real dad, but I didn't know how to. And there wasn't I never heard of a program. They didn't teach me in school. They didn't, you know, I couldn't get it from home. But this program came along, and it's teaching me how to be a real dad. You know, I kept the biblical cord. I started a savings account. I set up goals. These things that I never heard of for where I came from, and, you know, my upbringing. And Eddie keeps me on track on how to doing my work, setting my goals, and achieving different things. No one ever did that for me. You know, what I have, and like now, like he said, you're going to jail, and in jail is, you know, it's a school of knowledge, and usually it's negative knowledge. You know, all of us want, you know, to be a dad and be a father, but, you know, if you don't have that information, you're not going to be able to do it. And it's so far, you know, it has proven different, because, you know, I look forward to seeing my daughter and providing for my daughter and setting goals and starting a savings account, and, you know, and real dad, you know. Today I'm a real dad, you know, and I'm not, so, you know, so I don't want to feel sorry for me and stuff like that, but where I came from. But, you know, my dad was not there, you know. I mean, I never laid eyes on him. And down the road, I learned that, you know, I couldn't give to my son because no one gave to me. But today I'm giving it to my daughter because I'm receiving instructions on how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, I just ask that you restore the funding to the requested level. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Rod Gentry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is Rod Gentry. I'm with Union Bank and Trust, but tonight I'm here as a board member of the Piedmont Workforce Network, which we're in Area 6, and as you know, the City of Charlottesville is a grant recipient for funds that benefit our planning district in terms of workforce training. Recently, Governor Kane was in town, and some of you were at the dedication of the Workforce Center, the one-stop center on Hydraulic Road. And the vision for this center is to create a partnership approach among all the agencies that supply services to people looking for a job, to help them get needs assessment, to figure out if they need more training, and then to get them to the proper resource for training. And our workforce is the most valuable resource we have. We've got this we're so blessed to have the educational system we have here. And as a student comes out of high school and elects to go on to college or elects to go into the workforce, it behooves us to provide what's necessary to keep that resource, that human resource in Charlottesville, and have them be successful. So the business community, coupled with local, state, and federal government, is forming a partnership to do this job more efficiently with the support of the governor's office. And he's proposing that the community college system, as you're aware, be the sort of the guiding light to administer this program going forward. And there's a recent article, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend it, on the cover of Virginia Business, talking about workforce and the governor's efforts to do that. So I'm here tonight to ask you to reconsider a funding request in the amount of approximately $6,000 so that we can go forward with this work. Charlottesville's been a wonderful supporter of it, and you've supported the funding in the past, and of course we are serving as the grant recipient. And it's also consistent with the vision in our vision statement here in Charlottesville. The third point in that vision statement talks about I've misplaced it, but it talks about about the economic resource. So again, I want to ask you to reconsider that as you go forward, and thank you for all the support that you've given the workforce system thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. The next speaker is the Piedmont Council of the Arts, Terry Grant. Good evening.
My name is Terry Grant, 1524 Oxford Road. I'm a longtime Charlottesville resident and the Vice President of the Board of the Piedmont Council of the Arts. Joining me this evening is my fellow PCA board member, Lang Murray. Thank you for this opportunity to thank the Council for considering the proposed continuation of funding for the Piedmont Council of the Arts. Also with us tonight is the Piedmont Council's new Executive Director, Maggie Guggenheimer, and under her creative and committed leadership, PCA hopes to expand its presence in the community as the designated arts agency for Charlottesville and Albemarle. In particular, we're looking forward to working more closely with the city to help realize its vision element for arts and culture. PCA has a number of new programs underway that have a goal of connecting artists, arts organizations, and the community. For example, we've begun to collaborate with representatives from the public schools to provide a much-needed enhancement of information exchange between teachers and arts education providers. That's to facilitate access and exposure to the arts for local students. We've also started working with Parks and Recreation to coordinate an exciting bus painting project that will bring together residents from housing sites around the city and local artists. The project will culminate in a fun community-wide celebration in the late spring. Through coordination of these and other current initiatives, such as the city's valuable Percent for Art program, we believe PCA will serve as the go-to arts agency of Charlottesville, advancing shared goals for arts and culture that will benefit the whole community and enrich life here in Charlottesville. We appreciate the funding that Mr. O'Connell has requested in his budget, and we urge you, the council, to support his request. We pledge to work hard to fulfill our mission to the arts community, the city, and all its residents. And of course, we're always available to answer your questions and listen to your suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Morgan Perkins. And I don't see Morgan Perkins here. We're going to move on to Colette Hall.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Councilors. Colette Hall, 101 Robertson Lane. After much prayer and discussion with my husband, I ask that the person responsible for authorizing the expenditures of huge amounts of money spent from the Economic Development Fund, now called the Strategic Investment Account, resign from his or her staff position. I do not question if this was a breach of ethical behavior, but do indeed think it was a serious lack of judgment and therefore subject to dismissal. How can the city expect to fulfill the vision statement regarding smart, citizen-focused government, which states, quote, "And our decisions are informed at every stage by effective communication and active citizen involvement," if such behavior is without consequence? Otherwise, the citizens of Charlottesville see the council's vision statements as an exercise in futility. Tonight we discuss the city budget. The budget process is now colored by behavior that causes us to question the entire philosophy of the wise use of taxpayers' money. I know you are aware of how this incident has alienated the homeowner who is struggling to pay taxes and to remain living in Charlottesville. My husband and I bought a small 1950s wooden house and spent a large sum of money to make it handicap accessible for him. Even if we want to move, due to the absurd and shocking increase in our assessment, that is 500% in 9 years, where can we find another such modified house? We certainly cannot afford to start over. Please ask yourselves and answer the taxpayers. Due to revenue sharing, the city receives at least $10 million from the county. I would ask you to create a budget as if that money was not available. 2, if you vote to provide an additional $500,000, $500,000 for housing as urged by Impact, what will you cut from the proposed budget to find that $500,000? And 3, every year I stand before this body and urge fiscal restraint. Budget our needs and not our wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Jim Moore.
Good evening. I'm Jim Moore, 1213 Hazel Street. Wish to thank you, council members, for recognizing last fall that our budget cannot continue to grow at previous levels. Maybe now this relatively new council will also be receptive to suggestions for improving budget efficiency. Much work is needed for our budget to represent a highly effective organization. Stating that Vision 2025 performance measures are being developed is a good start. However, we need to catch up with other localities by defining consistent, measurable objectives for all of our city activities. I request that you create a volunteer commission to perform a resource utilization review and to assist staff to include comprehensive performance factors in next year's budget. A similar project was recently completed by the county school system, and as you just heard, one has been approved for our school system. The commission should, I think, instead of bringing in expensive consultants, we could probably draw from a very extensive pool of local professionals in the accounting, business management, and government budgeting professions. To illustrate the need for a commission, I will, as time permits, present you with a series of budget questions starting tonight and during future council meetings. The questions highlight more than $12 million in current resources that might be reallocated without affecting the quality of current services. The budget states that a survey is used to keep benefits, our employee benefits, consistent with the market. Tonight's question, though, is why do city retirement benefits appear to be so much greater than market standards? The private sector commonly provides benefits of 3% of income. Our school staff get 9.35%. Albemarle County provides a very generous 13%. Our Charlottesville's benefits, they range from 26 to 48%. The city manager's retirement benefit alone is over $83,000. If we were to provide the same retirement benefits as the county, over $5.5 million could be reallocated every year to other programs such as affordable housing. Thank you for your consideration of this request.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. The next speaker is Elizabeth Kuchai.
My name is Elizabeth Kuchai. I live at 126 Bollingwood Road. I have lived in the city for 35 years. And for 35 years, I've been scratching my head and wondering what I'm getting for the much greater taxes that I pay. If I lived a few hundred yards to the west of where I presently live, I would be in the county. And my tax rate is 40% higher than the county tax rate, in spite of the fact that the county gives us revenue sharing. I would like somebody to explain to me why. Now, Mr. Moore seemed to indicate a few of the reasons why. I've been studying this document. I'm not an expert. I'm a well-educated college graduate, but a lot of this is beyond me. Just trying to answer some questions like, how much is the county giving us in revenue sharing? On page 13, it says, city-county revenue sharing and carryovers, $8,271,865. And then over on page 15, it says city-county revenue sharing, $13,633,950. So I guess this carryovers subtracts $5 million. Where did it go? I don't get it. I look at this graph over here on page 16, and there's just this big whoop increase in city-county revenue sharing, no explanation of why. This is really hard to understand. But I'm beginning to get some idea of why I pay so much more in the city. Impact comes and they ask, we would like $500,000 for affordable housing. And the city council says, oh, yes, that's so worthy. And the county supervisors say, no, not one red cent. So what this means is city taxpayers are going to provide affordable housing for the whole region. Now here's another example. We're going to replace Smith Pool for $5 million. At least there's $5 million allocated on page 12 here. 80% of the people who use the city pools don't live in the city. So once again, the city taxpayers are doing all the heavy lifting for the whole region. Why? Why do we just automatically do that? It says here the current facility at Smith Pool no longer meets the needs of the community. I swim there all the time. Hardly anybody is ever there. There doesn't seem to be a crying need for swimming. Over here on page 10, it says, as a result of closing Smith Pool during the construction, we're going to save $200,000, so we're going to reallocate that $200,000 to 8 different things, including a family camp-in at a local park. Why not take that $200,000 and apply it to the $5 million here to build the new pool? I'm done.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else from the public like to speak? Mr. Sampson? Oh, Ms. Roberts.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members and Mr. O'Connell. Thanks for holding the forum Saturday. I enjoyed it. I agree with Colette Hall, the first part of her speech tonight about the resignation because of the funds that are really hidden from council and not being approved by council when they're spent. My assessment went up $11,000, and I think I said something about this in one of the prior meetings, and therefore that's about 6.2%. And considering the street I live on and the houses and the conditions that some of them are in, I felt it was high. And so I'm paying 95 cents per 100 additional over what I paid the last time. About the budget, and I hope you don't do anything about the retirees because, and their benefits, because I worked for the city 33 years, and I appreciate my retirement from the city. And it does help me to make a living. I'm not making what I was making with the city prior because I was making a good salary. However, one of the issues I want to bring forward is when we leave, I was here 33 years, when we leave, our replacements come in making more than we did, than we as a retiree are making. And then another issue I want to bring forward, I want to know what line item the bonuses for the department heads have been hidden, because I know that some of the department heads are getting bonuses. And why should they be getting bonuses when they're making good salaries? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Mr. Sampson?
I'm Bill Sampson, 609 Rhineshaw Circle. I don't have anything prepared, but I thought I'd like to make a comment. Mrs. Atkins, I believe, has left, but I wish she was here to hear this. The city, you're proposing a $1.4 million increase over last year's budget to the school system. I think over the years, I mean, we poured money and more money into the school system. And I know I've written many emails, most of which I didn't get a reply to. But it's obvious that improving the schools is not being, money is not the answer. And there was an article in the newspaper last year stating that the Charlottesville school system was voted the most inefficient in the state. It actually tied Buckingham, but we're talking about two different operations. It seems to me ludicrous to add more money to something that was so highly inefficient last year so that can be even more inefficient this year. The idea of the taxpayers supplementing the teachers and board members or whoever else for a gym membership. Gee, I'm putting a bill and I can't afford a gym membership. And I just think that it's outrageous that we're just pouring more money in there. When, obviously, I've been accused of not caring for the kids. It's not the kids. I wish the money did go to the kids, but apparently there's a lot of waste there. And I think we should reconsider giving any increase to the school unless they can prove every dime that's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Anybody else like to speak? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Any comments by city councilors?
Mr. Mayor, I have some comments from Mrs. Edwards, who's not here today. They are dealing with agency budgets, so I can talk about them tomorrow when we discuss the agent. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I'll make a couple comments. I think Ms. Kuchai, raised some important points. Why is our tax rate higher than the counties, despite the fact that we get revenue sharing? And I think that, there are some answers that can be found in the fact that we're urban, and there are costs that come with being urban, fire protection, police protection, but also the cost of poverty. We have a poverty rate in the city that's twice as high as it is in the county. Half of our school children are in free and reduced lunch. It's only about a quarter in the county. And I think those, that presents challenges in a wide range. But also share the concern that was expressed earlier, that we not overlook the homeowner who doesn't qualify for any type of assistance, but who feels the burden of our property taxes in our zeal to address all these other issues, and in our zeal to offer more affordable housing assistance. I think everything we've proposed to do is a good thing. So I'm not disagreeing with that, but there's a cost, and I think if you added up the cost of all of our affordable housing programs, certainly the average city taxpayer pays over a couple $100 a year in their tax to help other people afford to live here and help other people with their property taxes. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do, but I think we should be mindful that we are imposing a cost on individual taxpayers when we do that. I also thought that I'd like to see more information on the retirement issues that Mr. Moore raised. I think part of this issue, is comparing apples to apples. I'm sure Mr. O'Connell will have a response for us, in terms of how the county system works and how our system works. I know we self-fund our system as opposed to being part of the state system, and I would bet that these numbers aren't exactly line items that can be compared easily. They can be pulled out of documents, but not necessarily compared easily. But I don't know that for a fact. So I look forward to hearing more about that. And I'm certainly open-minded on any input that can help us be efficient, whether it's in retirement or in other areas. And so I look forward to having more discussion on. I don't think the middle of the budget is a time to make a decision like that, but I think getting input from citizens is a good idea.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
I'll just respond briefly to Mr. Sampson, and I guess I agree on some of the things you say. I will say that on the gym program or physical fitness program, I don't know what the situation is with the schools, what I think is the first for them. But one of the reasons that a lot of organizations are putting that in place is really to help hold down and reduce their health care coverage, which they provide employees. And I was just looking here, and I'll ask the city manager, but I think this is correct. We've been pretty successful at doing that in the city, and we've had a long-standing program going on for many years. And I think this current year, I think we've got, a 2% increase?
0 this year and 2% next year.
Okay.
Lowest in the region.
Right, which is pretty unusual for most. If you look at what other increases other organizations and other local government is having to deal with in terms of health care costs. So there probably is some benefit to it, or it certainly looks that way. And I just mentioned that, and I don't know what the school situation is on that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I always felt that was a personal matter, that you should take care of your health yourself. And
if we can, we're not really trying to debate the issues here tonight, but
I'll talk to you. Thank you. That's all I got.
I had a couple comments. First of all, I appreciate the speakers that were here tonight from the Real Dads program and the Workforce Development program. Those are very minor budgetary requests that I fully support. Secondly, I also fully support Mr. Moore's proposal for bringing in some volunteers and others to look at measurable objectives. I would add to that also developing better reporting on outcomes and what are we getting for our dollars, and looking into do we do our own resource utilization review? These are all topics that Mr. Talaferro and I have talked about for a number of months, and appreciate you bringing them forward, and see what we can do in that regard. The report that you mentioned in the school system was a wake-up call to all of us, but I learned subsequent to reading that article, it was actually based on test scores from a couple years prior. And I think if you look at where we are now, we're definitely improving in terms of achievement. And I'm not trying to debate with you tonight, but I think the school system is the school system is moving in a much better direction now. But we have to be mindful of efficiency when it comes to school expenses. On the issue of transparency in our economic incentive fund, I think we've all recognized that we need better public reporting on the expenditures from that fund. There's a proposal that's come forward from staff to incorporate greater council and public review of expenditures from that fund. There was absolutely nothing unethical done in the administration of that fund, and so I think calling for anybody's resignation is out of order.
And I would just add, it's on our website, City Council approved the Vision and Strategic Work Plan on August the 6th, and all the items that have been discussed about the Strategic Investment Fund were a part of that. The accounting for the specific dollars we've committed to City Council to provide, they have a detailed report, and we'll continue to provide that in the future and make it available to anybody in the public that would like to see it.
All right, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, and again, we're still in the middle of this process, so any citizen that's watching at home or reading about this in the paper tomorrow, please continue to feed us your ideas as we move forward towards adoption of the city budget. The next item on our agenda is a report from the University of Virginia regarding projects, an update on projects at the university, and I believe Mr. O'Connell or Mr. Tolbert's going to introduce this.
The University of Virginia has a number of, I think, really exciting projects. Several of them are things that have to do with West Main Street that have been talked about for the last 10 or 15 years. And we thought it would be good for Mr. Newman to just quickly give you an overview of what's happening now, things that will be happening in the next few months, and see if you have any questions about that. But this is only good information for both the council and the community, and continues our cooperative arrangements, discussions, and pretty open spirit the university has about development, particularly some pretty major projects. A couple of these he's going to talk about are of national import, including the soon-to-be open cancer center at the university, so exciting times. And I assume you're going to do a PowerPoint since you're wiring up, so we'll move.
I'm assuming I'm going to do a PowerPoint with the assistance of this gentleman here. How are you? Yeah. What's that? That's exactly the way it feels some days. Almost. Yes. I was going to make a joke about it. I thought I was back in California again, but I won't belabor that. Thank you very much for inviting me, Gary. I've done this periodically. It's usually been on about a year and a half basis. So, Mr. Mayor and councilors, thank you for your time tonight. I want to cover 3 items. As you can see from the title, it's called Changes on Grounds. Anyone that is on the grounds recently, or even in the last year and a half, is certainly aware that there are changes afoot. Some that you can see in terms of construction activity, some that are being planned, some that will be construction activity very shortly. So I'm going to touch on those. But first I wanted to talk about why is this change occurring, just to put it into a framework, and then how are we managing that change. And it's certainly with a lot of collaboration and cooperation with the city and the county. Because, if I can go, there we go. The green, if you can see this on the slide, are the grounds. This erratic line, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, is the border between the city and the county. The county is to the west, more or less, and to the north. And the city, of course, over here in the white is to the right, or the east, and south of the university. So this is something that I deal with every day, and maybe not a lot of people think about every day, but there are differences in terms of how we would consider certain sorts of infrastructure, certainly in terms of relationships to the 3-party agreement that we have with the city and the county. But we actually have buildings, if you look closely on here, like the law school, that's part in the city and part in the county, the actual building itself. Now, these are, of course, all University of Virginia lands in the green, which means they're state lands, and so that isn't a particular issue in terms of jurisdiction, but it is an issue sometimes in terms of just communications, and as I said, sometimes about infrastructure issues, although they're generally easy to deal with because there's a good sense of cooperation. Next. So what I wanted to talk about then first, as I said, is why is there change at UVA? And some of you have heard me talk before about this, but we have significant space deficiencies as measured by even the state standards, which are very conservative. That space deficiency has to do with office space. We actually have a number of faculty that are approved in the College of Arts and Sciences that we don't have space to house them. So the South Lawn is a witness to that project that will allow us to actually recruit and house the faculty on ground so that they're accessible to the students. We also, of course, at the moment rent a lot of space, and we have a lot of temporary space that's on grounds and is not as quite as commodious as we'd prefer for a number of the functions that are housed in that space. Secondly, we do have student and faculty increases. Part of the student increase is, of course, the agreement with the Commonwealth of Virginia that we're accepting approximately 150 new students each year, or additional students each year, I should say. There are approximately 100 undergraduates and 50 graduate students, but that can vary year to year. The number can shift a little bit up or down from the 150, but by and large, the agreement with the Commonwealth is that we accept a modest growth rate of 150 students per year. As far as faculty increases, we have a target of having an undergraduate ratio of 16 students per faculty that's available to them to teach, to counsel, to generally be available as in the Jeffersonian tradition. We're not quite at that ratio right now. We want to be at that ratio. And so we have to fill those positions to be at that, to provide the level of education that's expected at the university. And more, there's an expectation at the undergraduate level that they're going to be able to do research. And research requires, even in the first year, research requires access to faculty because you're not just turned loose on your own to start a research project. It requires guidance and supervision and collaboration. And so, again, that expectation drives a need for making sure that our faculty ratio is there and that the space is there for them to be in, to be accessible to the students. The other reason for faculty increase is improvement. We believe that we'll need to add additional faculty in the sciences, engineering, technology, and medical areas in order to stay at the edge of exploration, of research in those particular areas. It's a national priority. It's an international competition. It's certainly something to build and maintain the qualities that we'd expect the university as the flagship institution in higher education for the Commonwealth to be pursuing, to keep at that often called cutting edge. And so we do need to add some faculty in order to do that as well. Another thing that will be a result of this will be faculty change, not simply increase, but we have a large number of faculty, more than 300, that are in the bracket of nearing retirement. There's not an imposed limit, you know, as there used to be at the magic 65, but by and large, a lot of faculty are nearing that time when they will choose to retire. We will be replacing them. Oftentimes, the younger faculty come in, have different expectations in terms of facilities and also in terms of their relationships that they might have with colleagues and with graduate students. So there's probably going to be a notable increase in graduate students as we move into these science, heavier into these science, technology, and engineering areas, because the ratio of graduate students to faculty will usually increase. And so all we need to do is look at peer institutions, or those that we'd aspire to be peer institutions in the sciences, technology, or even medical areas, and we'll see that the graduate student ratio, you know, it's more graduate students per FTE faculty than we have now. So those things result in some amount of increase. It's not a major increase, but it is a notable increase. It's in the hundreds, not in the thousands. So, I mean, but still, that requires then change. It requires space. It requires reconfiguration of space and renewal of space. We also have these ideas for improvements. I'm sure everyone has heard of Virginia 2020. Most major universities around the millennium had some sort of a task force or commission or the like that said, where are we going to be in this new millennium? And most said, well, it'll take us 20 years to really see that. Virginia likewise had that. We've been following that rather scrupulously in terms of, again, emphasizing the thing I just mentioned, science and technology, but also the fine and performing arts. So a couple of the projects I'm going to show you tonight are related to science and technology, and others are related to fine and performing arts. It comes out of that planning process and that a set of objectives. In addition, President Castine last year initiated the Commission on the Future of the University, and that's just concluding. There's been faculty senate reports to the board visitors, and so on. Added to the notions of strengthening science, technology, and engineering and fine and performing arts is the notion of enhancing the student experience. Now, what does that mean? It means keeping up with the reputation that the University of Virginia has for one of the finest undergraduate education experiences in the country and in the world. In order to do that, we have to keep up with what the students, our first years, and so on, expect. I mean, they're coming out of environments that are a lot different, certainly from mine, somewhat from yours, even our mayors, and the notion of their expectation of what's available to them, certainly from the standpoint of the digital world, but also in terms of communications with colleagues. I mean, texting and Facebook are symbolic of the sort of anticipations that our students have in terms of communications, being able to have relationship with peers, being able to join a multitude of organizations and clubs to expand their potential in areas that they're not majoring in, but that they would like to explore. Also the notion of student counseling, the idea of peer relationships as well as those that are more traditional. It could be counseling about careers, it can be counseling about the problems of maturing at 18 years old. And we want to make sure that those things are accessible. We don't want to have what has happened in other institutions occur here, and we believe that one of those steps is to make sure that what used to be called the socialization process, although that sounds very parental, that self-actualization, or that ability to find yourself and find the resources to mature will be a part of enhancing that experience, and that requires a lot of effort in terms of providing the appropriate personnel and also the appropriate facilities. And certainly not least in this list is a recognition of what's here billed as global education. We don't need to pick up, we pick up the paper, we turn on any number of media, and the reality is we're in a global world. Global economy is the easiest way to put it, but certainly some of the things with what the citizens talked about tonight, the high school students talked about tonight, in terms of peace, world relationships, and so forth. We need to expand that capability so we're more of a presence in that at the university as we should be, representing the Commonwealth and the nation, but also allowing our students to develop so that when they leave here, they can be citizens not only of the Commonwealth and the United States, but in a way citizens of the world in order to communicate and to help to solve and structure those problems, as well as to continue our economic status in the world as one of the leaders. So all of those things are part of what drives us and makes change happen. And then certainly the notion of our engagement with the community. We are a state institution, a public institution. I think what prompted the city manager to ask me to come was an open house we had a couple of weeks ago at the Hampton Inn. 40-plus people showed up in 2 inches worth of rain and a tornado warning to learn about the changes that Ed Howell and the CEO at the health system was talking about in terms of health care, what's going to be made available and what that'll mean in terms of particularly facilities, but also what that'll imply in terms of the programs, the availability of health care for everyone that's here in the community. And we just were proud of the fact that you gave that commendation to the ovarian cancer group. That's one of, tens of those kinds of groups that are part and active in our health system and involve many people in the community as well as the staff and faculty in the health system. Additionally, housing and athletics, and I'll just briefly touch on those, and I may have some questions. You may have some questions related to that. And then finally, how do we maintain the sense of the university and its relationship to the community in all of this? I'd argue that we have to have sound planning practices, of course, and I'll touch on a couple of those. And we also have to be careful in terms of how we actually develop our facilities. And, of course, the buzzword of the last several years in the moment is a sustainable future. We have been working on a grounds plan. You might call it a comprehensive plan, or others call it a general plan. Our approach, first of all, is to make sure that we have principles that the Board of Visitors, the senior administration support, and these are the watchwords for our development and our planning. And overlaying them all is this notion of sustainability, and I always want to paint that in the broadest sense of the word. I think famous Charlottesvilleite Bill McDonough frequently talks about the 3 E's. Well, environment's one of those E's, but the others are equity and economy. And, of course, that deals with some other issues you were talking about tonight, including the school district and your own budget. And so we want to think about the fact that to sustain the University of Virginia, as well as to contribute to the sustainability of the region and the nation and the world, we have to think of these different sorts of things that are principles upon which we do our planning. A big part of what context means is the relationship to the community, the host communities that we have here, as well as the broader constituency we have in the Commonwealth. In a kind of a cartoon diagram, this is an idea of how we've done the grounds plan. You saw that earlier image of the jagged boundary between city and county, but when we're doing our planning, of course, we're thinking of the whole of this nearly 1,300 acres. We look at all the opportunities that are in that in terms of connections to transit, utilities, what are undeveloped but reasonably accessible parcels. But then we also look at the constraints. We did a biohabitat survey done by an outside group called NatureServe that are a spin-off of the Nature Conservancy that helped to look at all of those 1,300 acres and look at the biosensitivity of those. Included in that, of course, are things like streams and slopes and so forth. We also preservation plan that looks at what cultural resources we have that we want to preserve, both, of course, the academical village, but beyond that. And then you put that small equation together, and we have an infill strategy. Basically, we're saying that we can work within the bypass area of the UVA grounds, and we believe, 20 years worth of capability in there at a density that would be similar to the density we have today. And that will be through stewardship of resources we already have and reuse of those, through careful redevelopment and infill, and some amount of new development. The new development always gets the most attention, of course, but behind the scenes and almost invisible a lot of times is the redevelopment aspect, and I'll just, again, touch on that very briefly. So here's one of those as an example. Cock Hall, entering its third life cycle. It's a 100-plus-year-old building, 105 years old, and Fairweather Hall, even older than that, entering its fifth life cycle. So what I mean by life cycle is the use life cycle. So these were both renovated buildings. They're historic buildings, this one by Stanford White. And this is now, was designed originally as an engineering building, lived a life through mixed use in arts and sciences, and now has philosophy. It's a classroom building, it's an office building, it's quite a beautiful building, and if you're on grounds to peek in, take a look. Fairweather, likewise, is now, as I said, on its fifth life cycle. That's the building up on Cars Hill next to where the President and Mrs. Castine reside. These were just in the planning stages. The Rugby used to be apartments for faculty. This will become, frankly, its second life cycle, and we're looking at it as administrative and support space to complement Madison Hall because it's so close. We've done a lot of the work on the exterior already. We just hired a firm from Richmond, Glavy Homes, to help us program and complete the interior renovations. And then Garrett Hall, another Stanford White building that was the first refectory or dining hall, freestanding dining hall, next to the Academical Village. It will then be going through it'll be entering its fourth use life cycle when we complete the renovations, and that will be for the new Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy. So again, adaptive reuse, very sustainable. All the embodied energy of these buildings is preserved, and we bring them up to contemporary standards and utilization factors. Next. Another important thing to keep the quality of life on grounds is to continue with a strong commitment to landscape and a strong commitment also to placemaking. So one of the things the South Lawn gets talked a lot about in terms of its academic buildings and the terrace that's going to be built across JPA, but really an important part for the community will be the commemoration of the Foster site and a African-American burial ground that has 30 graves. These will all be commemorated in a very open and public way. The burial site restored. We've been working with an archaeological committee, including representatives from the students, faculty, and staff. And this, designed by Walter Hood, prominent African-American landscape architect who actually reported to previous council a while back about the design of the South Lawn and its landscape. This is going ahead and will be an intimate part of what will be the cultural heritage of the grounds and of Charlottesville and commemorate the settlement that's called Canada that was of freed persons and others that worked in service to the university mainly. Next. Sustainability, we've been involved in having our own guidelines that go beyond LEED for the last 3 years. And last year, next, the board visitors approved the fact that starting January 2007, every new project and every major renovation, every one, is done according to the LEED rating system. And The first one out before that date was the South Lawn, and we're looking, of course, to expand that into every project we're doing, so the Couric Cancer Center, of course, is a part of that as well. Next. So quickly, the projects that we have underway in construction. I've cited all of the ones that are underway right now, including 2 utility projects, but I'll just reference in specific the academic projects and clinical care projects themselves. Next, please. As I mentioned, Architecture School has 2 additions. This is a sketch of it. Here it is under construction. That's actually a couple months old. It's moving right along and should be finished early summer of this year, and will allow for additional faculty offices, studio, teaching space, and new public entrance to the Architecture School. This is the Studio Art Building, Ruffin Hall, just down the slope from the Architecture School. Here's architecture right here. This is Cars Hill, and that was Fairweather that I just talked about, right here. And so down slope, kind of opposite where the new garage opened a couple weeks ago, is the Studio Art Building. Again, that's a little behind in terms of where we are today. And that's going to be finished, we hope, in time for classes next fall. We had a little delay in getting the steel on the site, and that set us back some time. Architecture is actually on schedule, and they will be done early summer. This, if you've been over to look at the big tower crane behind the hospital, we're moving right along back there with the Carter Harrison Research Building, major addition to the medical school. It's still not going to be finished for another almost 2 years. It's a very complex building. It's a large building. It's biomedical research in its intensity, and it's various departments, including cancer research, will be in that building. This is just started, and that's the new medical education building. This is JPA right here. This is Lane Street. So it sits in front of the Medical Research Unit 5 that was finished about 5 years ago. Quite dramatic in its shape, and it's meant to be the signature building of the medical school, because that's where all of our students will first encounter the medical school, because the admissions office, their interviews in order to come into the medical school or be accepted, all those things will happen there, but also the principal teaching facilities are there. Technologically enhanced learning center is on this lower level that you can maybe squint at and see behind the glass, and then a more traditional lecture hall is stacked on top of that. So this is the heart of education for the medical school itself. All of the student support areas, their student lounge, mailboxes, and all those things are in the rest of the building. So this will really be the heart of the medical school student day-to-day activity. And it is opposite the addition to or freestanding, but additional space for the nursing school right across the street. That's moving right along and will be finished in about a year. Almost all the framing's done on it now. It's right here in the background. Here's the medical education school building. So they're right across the street. As part of that, we planned a extension of a public kind of park that will help by traffic calming this intersection between 15th Street and Lane, and also then replace a little park that was on the site of the medical education building and be just next to the French House. Up on Observatory Hill, unless you for some reason have gone up there recently to the observatory or something, you're probably not aware, but we are building a new student dormitory, 200 plus beds. And it's coming out of the ground and will be finished in about a year and a half from now, in time for fall in about 6 months from now, fall 2008 occupancy. So this, again, is an older image, and the framing is up on the building. It's quite dramatic. The South Lawn itself, which I just had highlighted the Foster site areas down here. These are the buildings themselves. If you've been by there recently, you can see the steel going up, and we expect all the steel to be in place by the middle of next month. The project is slightly ahead of schedule, but we're due to finish everything by 2010, but we're hopeful that we may have the 2 wings available as early as the middle of 2009. We've been doing a lot of work with the city staff, engineers and traffic management, fire and police and so forth, to try to minimize the impact we have on JPA. I'm often asked, when will this terrace be built? Are we going to close the road? The road will only be closed between like 1 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning during weekdays for somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks, and that's all being carefully orchestrated. Emergency vehicles, Chief, will be able to go through. It's just from a safety perspective, we wouldn't want to be swinging the crane over there while anybody was driving underneath it. But it will never be closed like closed. So the worst is over as far as JPA is considered from our perspective, because the utilities are finished. These are the projects in design. I'm just going to mention 3 here. These are imminent. The first is, please, Bavaro Hall. This is next to the Ed School. This is Emmett Street. Brown College across the street. So what you're looking at is back. This is the existing Ruffner Hall for the School of Education. This is Brown College. The bookstore is right here, and it goes in a parking lot next to the existing Ed School. That will start construction towards the end of this month or the first of next month. And we just had a meeting about setting up a neighborhood meeting to just inform people about the schedule and so forth in the Lewis Mountain area. We did a broader meeting about a year ago about that project. This is the Couric Cancer Center. That will, I think the groundbreaking, which is really going to be swinging a mallet at the parking garage that's out there right now, is on April the 12th. And that garage will be taken down, and this building will be put in its place. And that, as you can see, next month, and it takes about 3 years to build it. And then a rather unique and interesting project, very logistically challenging, is going to be to, if I had a photo of the existing hospital from this direction, you would see that there are porches in the front of the, I call them porches, terraces. Some call them balconies. This will replace those. So there's a whole projection of space that will come out from the existing hospital and accommodate approximately 100 new beds that will be in this glass and steel structure. It's going to dramatically change the impression of the big white hospital right now, at least from one side, and it relates very closely to what we want to do with the Cancer Center in terms of its design. And then another project I'll show you in a second, which will be improvements on Lee Street and the whole entry to the hospital. These are projects that are a little further off that I'm saying are in planning. If we go to them. We have 2 new science buildings on grounds, one for the engineering technology that will go in this area behind Olson Hall and Thornton Hall. So it's back, this picture is taken from the stadium, like on the press box, looking back. Goes in that location next. And this is an infill site that was planned back in the early or late middle 90s, I guess, when this extension of the chemistry building was done. This was set for putting in an additional science building, and so we're now going to put a arts and sciences research building in that location. A little more projects, but just something so you're aware of them. We have a print shop, and we need to expand the ITC capabilities that are out here at what we call Fontana, which is off of Old Ivy Road. And this is Ivy Road here, and this is Old Ivy Road and the bypass. And this is the Lee Street accommodation that I was talking about. So here's the patient bed expansion that I just showed you, and on the existing hospital. Here's the Emily Couric Cancer Center. Here's the parking garage that was just finished behind West Main Street. And so what's happening here is we're setting up a whole new set of connective passageways above grade, and a new set of elevators, a new lobby, new canopy, a whole new arrival experience to the hospital, reprogramming Lee Street to calm traffic and to enhance the pedestrian environment. And as you can tell, there's a lot of landscape that's planned for there as well. So the whole idea is to create a much more friendly, green, as my colleagues like to say, health affirmative environment for the entry to the hospital. And I would also add, I think, a lot safer environment than we have in terms of the rushing around of all the different vehicles and so forth now. And so that's a very important finishing piece to pulling all of these projects together. And then two, I already mentioned Rugby and Garrett, which is the next one, which we're just beginning to work on. These are a historic photo. Notice the awnings. This is the building as it is today. And then I'll end with this, which is some things change, but others don't. So here's Garrett Hall. Here's Cock Hall that I mentioned earlier. And, of course, the Academical Village. We're doing a lot of work, restorative work. If you walk around and look carefully, you'll see masons working, painters working. We're putting new railings on the upper areas of colonnades, all done with a very exacting research, including what were the original designs, what's there now, what's different, what are we replacing it with, what were the real colors, finishes, and so forth. So there's a lot of things that we're doing in terms of preservation that I'm not going to say other than to mention that that's still, the core, the heart of the University of Virginia. And although lots of change around us, the core is still going to be maintained and upgraded, if you will, to continue to be the World Heritage Site that we're all proud of. So again, thank you for all this time. I appreciate it. And I will, of course, answer questions if you have them. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. That's good.
Yeah, it's very informative.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I don't have it.
Dr. Brown?
Is it just as you envisioned?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to offer a comment. I think one of the things you alluded to, but I think it's really changed and improved has been the reaching out from the university to the community, keeping us informed of projects. I think all of you at UVA, I think Mr. Sanders, Mr. Castine, and yourself have a lot of credit for helping us be part of the process. And I think it's a big change over 5 years ago. And I also think it also speaks to the way in which we are working together. One of the things I appreciate is your interest in making sure the edges between the university and between the city and between the county work well together, the interface. You didn't really mention it particularly, but there's a lot of things we're doing together. And I think transit, you kind of skipped over a little bit in one of your slides, but that's a great example of how the university and the Charlottesville system are working well together. It came up at our work session the other day that some people in the community were surprised to learn that everyone seems to have learned that it's now free to ride the bus if you work at UVA, but what they didn't realize was that the university paid us in order for staff and students to have that privilege. And that the trolley is, again, something the university has invested in that helps our system. So I thought there's a lot going on, but I really have I think there's a lot of positives about the way in which you're going about it, not to mention the sustainability initiatives that I think we can all learn from. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I mentioned one thing that is coming soon to our joint transit system is the texting information, so that be able to both for UTS and CTS be able to tell when the next bus is going to arrive at a given location. Every time I bring that up with the students, they're just thrilled because they really don't want to wait that extra 3 minutes if they're not sure the bus is going to be there, but if they can see it on their phone or on their Trio or BlackBerry, they say they'll start to use the bus system even more than they do today, so I'm optimistic about that as well.
I just had a question. There's sort of been this unwritten agreement between the city and the university going well before my time on council that the university will not expand any further eastward on West Main Street. And I personally am not convinced that that's a good idea. And I'm wondering, do you see any opportunities, given our desire to see West Main Street realize its economic potential, and do you see what are the obstacles that would prevent the university from joining in partnership with the city and with the private sector to identify some potential infill opportunities along that avenue?
Well, our first joint project is to try to get the West Main area between JPA and Roosevelt Brown to be redeveloped, at least a good part of it. And I think that'll be a good prototype for us to prove we can do that. As far as moving beyond that point, I think the response that Mr. Sandridge and others have made about not moving eastward was to calm any of the neighbors' concerns that it would be just a growth pattern that would be not considering necessarily the concerns of the neighborhood or the city, but simply more space to build more buildings. And I think that's what Mr. Sandridge has been saying, is that that's the concern that you shouldn't be worried about. I think in terms of collaborative process, if it were something that we could each bring something to the table and might, involve things like the housing issues that you and I have been involved with, I would think that would be something that we could definitely talk about. Right. And I know former Mayor Brown had brought that up to me as well, and I think that we can be open to that sort of a discussion, because I think there's certainly some mutual issues there.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
The last item on our regular agenda tonight is a resolution regarding energy efficiency requirements for new construction using city funding. It would be the first of one reading, although I understand we're being asked to defer any vote on this item for tonight. Mr. Tolbert.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. This is an item that grew out of your strategic work plan that was adopted last year. You had two items, two goals in that. One being that homes that were assisted with any city dollars or contributions would meet an energy standard such as Energy Star, and that second, that any homes that were assisted would meet a universal design standard. This resolution would set both of those things in place as a condition of our funding of any housing. What I'd like to do is just briefly describe it to you tonight and answer any questions you've got. I'm going to present this to the Housing Advisory Committee and others later this week, and let them have a chance to weigh in on it before it comes back to you for a vote. So we wanted to vet it a little more before it came back to you. Essentially, the principles of Energy Star are effective insulation, high-performance windows, tight construction and ducts, and efficient heating and cooling equipment. The idea being that the home is much more energy efficient, lowering the overall operating costs for the purchaser. It's better environmentally, but it also is generally perceived to be a savings in the long run for the person living in the house. The one that is not so well known is universal design features. Universal design features are something that have grown up as our population has aged. I sent you an article, I'm not sure if you've gotten it yet, it was in the Richmond paper the other day. It's starting to catch on around the country, but there's several features in universal design, and universal design is recognized. North Carolina State has done a lot of development on about what it is and how to achieve it, and there's three standards: bronze, silver, and gold. This resolution would suggest that we would ask that our builders achieve a bronze standard, which is the lowest standard, at a minimum. They could go more, of course, if they wanted to. But just some examples of things that it would do. At least one stepless entrance would be essential to the home. Now, you'll notice in the resolution that we've put a caveat in there that if if the topography is such, and that's one of the problems in this community, that you couldn't get that stepless entry, that could be waived at this time by the engineer, but all other pieces would be met. And those other things are a half-inch maximum rise at entrance thresholds, clear door widths that are 34 minimum to 36 feet wide for all entrance doorways, decks at the same level as the main floor of the house, at least one bedroom and accessible bathroom on an accessible ground floor entry level, the same level that the kitchen and living room are, so that you could live in one level of the house. There could be additional bedrooms above. Doing things like for the bathrooms, that there's a minimum space to get in, minimum around the showers, clear space around any toilet, that the switches and controls are both above the floor to allow people to get to them, that not necessarily in a wheelchair, but even somebody that has trouble that's elderly and bending over to be able to get to a plug. Again, it's designed to achieve a standard that you can age in place in a house, and it's not a handicapped accessible, but it's a standard that allows aging in place. And well, again, what I'd like to do is answer any questions you might have, but if not, take this to the Housing Advisory Committee and say, we don't believe that if you plan for this, that it will impact the cost of housing. The article that I provided you said that there is that they've identified in 800 homes in Georgia an average of $1,500. Most all of that's attributed to the site work to get the level entry. That's why we would recognize that could be a problem, but everything else could work. Does that answer any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Tolbert. Any questions?
I have 2 comments. I think energy-rated homes is a very good requirement, and I know that in Freedom Housing Alliance, we worked on 10th and Page, all of them are energy-rated. It can be done, not only for improvements, but also for the family ongoing expenses to them for utilities be much lower in the long run. So I think it's a great idea, and I think we should require that. On the other hand, I also want to support universal design homes, but I looked through all the standards. In a new construction, I think it is possible to do quite well. But in existing housing, I'm not sure it's physically possible to do that. And just to try it out in my own home, I tried, my home is a fairly modern home. And the type of improvements, I went through the drawings item by item, and I couldn't get anywhere close to this myself. So I have some concern as to whether it's physically and economically possible to do the bronze standard in existing housing, not in the new housing. New housing, I think it could be done.
Is this proposed for new housing?
It was proposed for new housing only. So.
Okay, well, then, okay. That's
yes,
fine.
sir, recognizing that that's an issue.
Is that quite clear from the...
Maybe the resolution should be clear.
Well, the resolution does state new housing, so...
That's fine. Because I didn't think it could do it for existing housing.
Right. Right, it's a great point.
Any other questions or comments?
I think this is a great idea. I look forward to vetting it more thoroughly, but I think it's, future residents of Charlottesville will thank us for keeping their energy bills down. So I think it's really something we need to move towards.
When does the housing group, I'm sorry.
Thursday.
They meet Thursday, yes.
Okay, so they're going to take it up there.
Right.
I had 3 questions / comments. First of all, I want to make sure we add the phrase "at a minimum" in here, because in the resolution, because certainly we don't want to say they can't go higher than bronze on university. So I would say make sure we add the phrase "at a minimum." And secondly is we just heard that the university has adopted a requirement that all new university buildings and major renovations be done to LEED standards. And I'm not aware, I know we've talked about doing that for city projects. Have we adopted something like this for our own internal projects? And if not, shouldn't we?
We've done it administratively, but we'd welcome council doing it.
I would like to see us fold that into this resolution and hold our own efforts to the same standard we're asking for the nonprofits and others to
Just
hold.
add another paragraph for LEED bronze.
Well, it doesn't have to be LEED, it could be Energy Star. I mean, I'm just saying I think it'd be good on a policy basis for us to adopt the same standard, if we're doing it already administratively.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to think. It's probably a broader issue than just this for us to meet the LEED standards.
I'm not suggesting LEED necessarily, again, looking at...
I mean, that's administratively what we've been doing.
Okay.
I don't know how that compares.
The LEED standards are good standards. I think we could aspire towards that.
I have no problem doing LEED, I'm just saying at least do what we're asking.
I guess I would say that LEED would get to the efficiency and the sustainability. We already meet all the ADA standards, which would exceed any of the universal design standards. We can incorporate some of those. So we can get some language in.
I guess we could put language in that says all city buildings will meet these standards. I think our standards that we've been using on new buildings and what we've been practicing on renovations is to way exceed those standards.
Okay.
So
I think it'd be good just to adopt that policy. And then finally, we gave conceptual approval as a council to the idea of creating, and I don't know if this is a question you can answer or not, creating a property tax, a differential property tax rate for energy efficient homes. And I haven't heard any more about where we are in actually drafting an ordinance to put that into effect. Do you happen to know, Mr. Brown? Or?
Yes, we've completed a draft of an ordinance. The only reason it has not come forward is the General Assembly just made changes to the enabling legislation. And assuming that goes through, and they're nothing to be concerned about, but it does affect the ordinance we've drafted. So as soon as those changes are officially law, then we'll bring that forward.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I agree with the comments of other councils. I fully support what this is trying to do and look forward to hearing any concerns or questions that the Housing Advisory Committee might raise. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open it up to one more round of matters by the public. And actually, before we do this, a citizen, I'd like to offer up for future agendas that we move the final round of matters by the public to the end of the meetings, not for tonight, just have it after our other business. I think procedurally it flows better that way.
Good idea.
Okay. So we'll open it up to matters by the public. Mr. Kleeman.
Good evening. I'm Peter Kleeman. I live at 407 Hedge Street in the city. I was delighted to be able to attend the first meeting of the Pedestrian Safety Committee. That was a product of a discussion you had several meetings ago. And it was a lively meeting. There were 8 staff and 12 citizens present at my count. And there was a lively discussion about some of the needs for pedestrian investments in the community and looking at some time horizons and available resources. And as a result of that discussion, I would like to encourage council to be sure to identify available funding to implement some of the recommendations that this committee will come up with in the near future. The exact time horizon is not clear. It could be months or several months before we'll have firm recommendations, but it's my understanding there are already identified pedestrian safety issues that can be addressed that are not really requiring input from this committee. And when I look through the budget initiatives, there may be funds in there, but it's not clearly identified. And if this is truly an initiative that the city would like to see move forward, I think dedicating some specific, at least minimum available funds directly dedicated for those investments, I think we as a committee will have a better idea of what our targets are as far as identifying projects and have the assurance that our work will go toward implementable results. And so I would encourage some discussion as the budget process goes forward, or administratively, or whatever the appropriate method is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kleeman. And we have had that discussion already, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Mr. Halbert.
Jason Halbert, 803 Stonehenge Avenue. I just want to encourage you, following on the council's action on the energy efficiency tax credit, I did the test, the blower door test, the duct blast test. I paid for all of it and promptly failed the test. And so I've been busy trying to improve my 1946 Belmont home. And if I read the legislation correctly, I haven't read it, the final version, they're basically weakening the standard. It's still an improvement over building code, but I would encourage council to maintain that standard of 30% better than code. I would have failed both, but I think keeping that standard high is going to be the target that we want to see, and I think that it'll be better in the long haul for everyone. It'll be less impact on revenue, I think, for the tax break, and I think it'd be an improvement. But I haven't, like I said, read the final version. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Anybody else? Okay, I mentioned Mr. Kleeman. We did actually have a brief discussion about where in the budget we could find funds for pedestrian safety improvements. Do you want to touch on that?
There are dollars in the current year's budget, and we'll make you and the committee aware of that. And then we had a discussion with council the other night. There are dollars that are in the capital budget that are termed contingency, which we're waiting for the committee's recommendation, assuming there's some more major projects. We think the smaller projects we can cover with the current budget already. We got to add all those up.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Now, other business, just as an announcement, I should have mentioned this up on the first part of the meeting, but we are going to be, typically in August, we cancel one of our 2 city council meetings. This year, we are canceling the August 4th meeting. We will be meeting the 3rd Monday in August. We are also working, I don't think we've nailed down a date yet, we are working to schedule a work session on water supply issues, try to get all the information out on the table. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that, and we hope to have it either in late April or May, I believe, or the rough time frame. Dr. Brown, you had raised an issue about ASAP.
Yeah, I have a couple of things I want to bring up. ASAP came before us in the fall asking us for, I think, $11,000 to help fund a study on a sustainable population size for the Albemarle-Charlottesville community. And we sort of agreed to do that, but we asked for a more specific plan, scope of work. And then we asked that our sustainability committee take a look at that scope of work when it came out, and that has happened. And ASAP put its scope of work into 7 different areas, and our committee was in agreement that the first 3 were very important areas to be studied, which were ecosystem services, environmental footprint analysis, and population impacts on single environmental variables, namely stream health, air quality, and the water supply. And the committee didn't really think that the softer science aspects of their proposal were the ones that we should focus on, those being resident opinions, character of a community, and best place to live methodology. There was some support on the committee for looking at the economic cost of growth, which was their last section. And so I bring that to you. I think that's our committee's findings were somewhat consistent with what the Board of Supervisors have said, and I'll leave it up to you to figure out what step we take next on this.
Are you offering that in the form of a motion? We've discussed, we've given general approval to the allocation. We just wanted to...
I'd be glad to offer a motion that we move forward with funding of the ASAP project, but with the request that funding be limited to the first 3 items on their list of work.
Is there a second?
How much is that fund?
It's $11,000, which is, we had already agreed to set aside $11,000 contingent upon this review.
I should have seconded it first.
That's okay. I'll take that as a second.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Please indicate your vote. Thank you. Ikley?
And the second thing I'd like to ask is, I'd like to, as the new chair of our climate committee, there's an important meeting, the ICLEI Local Action Summit. It'll be in Albuquerque in the middle of May. It's for both local officials and staff. I emailed you guys copies of the agendas. I think it pretty much is about how to take the goal of significantly decreasing emissions and how to put it into action, and how cities can learn from each other and learn from the experts in the fields. The really cool thing about this is that ICLEI is offering to pay the airfare of elected officials and a staff of an elected official and a staff person if we register by March 28th to this meeting. So I would like to attend, and I just wanted to see if I could get your concurrence on that.
Typically, we don't vote on these kinds of things, but in the spirit of transparency, we appreciate you bringing them up.
I wasn't going to travel anywhere without you guys saying that.
Mr. Mayor, I support Dr. Brown's idea. I would like to discuss sometime the travel policy for the city council members, because I had interest, but this time I'm going to use my own money to do that. But I'm just curious if we ought to have some kind of a discussion, and not necessarily city council meeting if you want, but in work session or somewhere more appropriate.
That'd be fine by me. All right. Bon voyage.
Thank you.
Any other additional business?
Since I got it, I just, tax grant program, 1,015 people received a grant. In 2007, 377 of those received a grant under $500. And we'll get the specifics, and the commissioner is calling the citizen that was here earlier tonight.
That's a quick response. We appreciate that. Meeting is adjourned.
Hi, I'm Krista Farrell, Assistant Director of the Jefferson-Madison Regional Library System. I'd like to invite you to be part of an exciting library program, The Big Read. The library's goal is to encourage all residents of Central Virginia to read and discuss To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee during March and April, and then take part in the many events celebrating this much-loved novel. Two exciting local programs are the public reading of selections of the book at the Gravity Lounge on April 3rd at 7 p.m. And then on May 1st, the Paramount will show the 1962 Academy Award-winning film at 7 p.m., followed by a panel discussion. The Big Read is a nationwide program sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts, designed to restore reading to the center of American culture. The library is partnering with the Virginia Foundation for the Humanities for these regional Big Read events. For more information, contact the Jefferson-Madison Regional Library or go to jmrl.org. Now watch this YouTube video designed by Brian, Alex, Stephen, and Megan Kurst to promote the Big Read in our area. We bet you'll love the book.
Hey, what you reading? To Kill a Mockingbird.
What's that about? Well, it's a story about a girl named Scout and her brother Jem. They live with their dad named Atticus in the town of Macomb. One day, when Jem and Scout are on their way to school, they find some interesting gifts in a tree near Boo Radley's house.
Wait. Who's Boo Radley?
Well, he's a mysterious character who's locked up inside his house by his own brother. There's a rumor that Boo stabbed his father with a pair of scissors when he was younger. Jem and Scout are so interested in Boo that they try to get a glimpse of him through his own window, but are shot at. Jem also gets mad at an old lady and attacks her bushes, and Atticus goes to court, and there's a rabid dog in someone's house burns down.
Whoa! Don't ruin the book for me. I want to read it myself.
Awesome! You should visit your local library and join people all across the Charlottesville area reading To Kill a Mockingbird this March and April.
Cool. I'll be...